832. Nicholas, I think we figured it out. What's going on, man?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loudly and clearly, my friend. What's up?
Okay, I just want to say, like, when you're talking about Obama yesterday, a lot of people, were kind of getting on, men. I guess they were getting crazy. But you have to remember, a lot of people buy into the cult of personality as opposed to policy. I know when I vote in particular, I look very carefully. I try to separate my emotional investment in the person and what I believe they are, because I don't know them. It's just a complete persona. You can be sold on that kind of stuff, and that stuff can be used to trick you.
Absolutely.
Just focus on the policy. And when you start looking at Obama as a policy ground, you have to be honest with yourself that he is definitely a mixed bag at best. At best, a mixed bag. Because there are things he has done, but then there's a lot of stuff that's like, you kind of have to wonder. And then looking forward, you have to look at the results of kind of like what those policies actually become after they're, from electorally, like, right? When those policies are played out, we have to see what happens to the base. They get demoralized. They don't show up to the polls. We lose all the way down the ballot. We lost 2010. We lost 2012.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor and back up.
Again with Hillary Clinton.
Back up a little bit and start that section again. You're talking about the getting demoralized. You're talking the progressive base getting demoralized.
Yeah. So
okay. Go ahead.
In general, when you get in there and you kind of try to say, okay, well, you guys go sit down. I'm just going to do this because I have to do this. And your base has to kind of make excuses for you. You don't really offer them an inspiration as to why they're voting for you. To be honest with you, when you lose an election as a candidate, sometimes it's about, maybe you weren't strong enough to win. But a lot of times you have to realize that if the voters aren't turning out to vote for you and your candidates, you have to step back and say, why aren't I motivating people to vote for me? Like it's not the voters' fault that we lost in 2010. Of course, they have a role to play, but the candidate also has to take some responsibility. And that's what I was trying to make people understand, that when you look at Hillary Clinton, somebody who does not exactly unify the base, there's a percentage of the base that just does not like her.
Absolutely.
And for whatever reason, you can say that it's not a good reason and blah, blah, blah. You can make that argument all day. But when you have a person where a good percentage of the base just does not like her and will not vote for her, even if she does win, who's to say we won't get destroyed in the midterm? And, we're looking at it again. We're coming up on the census in 2020. If we lose here and we lose by such a wide margin in the midterm, we could end up dealing with another redistricting with the Republicans in control of all those state houses.
Yep.
So this is all stuff that has to go into the calculus. We might win a Supreme Court seat, but we can lose everything else and be stuck for another decade looking down the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with anything that you just said. From a political perspective, from a policy perspective, I rate President Obama center right. He's far from a progressive on a policy, particularly economic policy position. Social policies, he's been, he's been decent, right? He's been good, at least, repealing, not repealing, but DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, and marriage equality, standing on the right side. That really wasn't his call, but he was on the right side of the equation. He endorsed. So from a social perspective, okay, he's been progressive. Economically, no, not at all. In terms of a lot of other issues that are important to progressives, not at all. The key point that I wanted to make last night is that if you have, it can't be about being right if you need to win. Right. And this is not a moral. This may not be a moral high ground thing. A lot of people get hooked on, but I'm right. And Obama is not a progressive. We are right. Obama is not a progressive. And when you don't get and what you said is absolutely spot on. When you don't give somebody the motivation and the inspiration to want to get up and come support you, then it's not just the voters' fault. If their fault at all, it's the candidate's fault. I agree with everything that you said. But when we're talking about communicating to people who are emotionally connected to their first Black president, you can't dismiss that and say, no, you got to listen to me. Obama's the worst thing, or not even the worst thing. Obama ain't who he said. Obama didn't do this. Obama didn't do that. You can't talk to people like that and expect to connect with them. And that's the key thing that I think we missed in this election was that we did not. And when I say we, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders in general, did not understand the importance of connecting with the people who love that personality to a detriment. Yeah. I mean, to a downfall. Yes. But you can't negate that fact that that relationship is there. And if you want the opportunity to show them that President Obama hasn't been good for them, then you have to come in respecting President Obama first. It's a necessary evil. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, and I understand that. I was just saying, just to make 2 points, and I'll get off the phone. But as far as the centrism goes, if you're going to be centrist, that's fine. If you don't want to, rock the boat too much, what you should do is you should go into battles and understand that you may lose, but it's important that you be seen fighting that battle, even if you do lose. And you have to actually give it a valiant effort. It may seem like a waste of time, but it will go a long way towards helping you electorally. You don't necessarily have to believe you're going to win, and who knows, you might actually get something out of it. Yeah. But it's important to be seen fighting for the progressive cause, and if you lose, that's fine, but you can manage the narrative, and you can manage it that way instead of, when Republicans have something to say, or when a progressive has something to say, you can say, you just kind of be quiet, and you try to silence your base, or try to distance yourself from them, or whatever kind of strategy they try to come up with. And to your point about Obama, I'm not saying that you dismiss somebody's viewpoint and you dismiss where they're coming from. You have to empathize. Yeah, however,
that's the key word.
You should be able to develop a relationship with the person that says, I agree with you, I support him. But separate from that, I also understand the need to be honest with both myself and with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Listen, thanks so much for that call, because you're spot on. I mean, you tied together everything that I've said so far tonight. At no point does your empathy with someone have to make you betray what you believe. It doesn't. It simply means I have a point. I'm never going to let go of that point, but I'm also going to take into consideration your perspective. That's relationship 101. And we did not build those relationships because it requires an uncomfortable conversation. I mean, I said it 8 months ago. I should just play that video on repeat. Like they should have. Hell, I can't blame that on them. I didn't get started until 10, 12 months ago, a year ago. But I nailed it on the head 8 months ago. Before it was an issue, I had already solved the problem or knew what the problem was going to be. The problem was going to be the inability of a certain segment, particularly white millennials, to connect with the African-American vote in the way that they were going to need to connect. Because there's still people, you understand, there's still people right now who, even though the vote is in terms of the black vote, I'm not talking about Bernie Sanders supporters, they're still on this trip of, I can't believe they don't understand. I can't believe that they don't know. I can't believe. And I'm saying, and I'm trying to politely tell them, they do know, right? They may not care the way that you care. To them, the most important thing may simply be to have a great representation of blackness in the White House. That may be the end of their calculus. And if you dismiss that and say you're dumb as F, then you may have won an argument, but you lost a vote. That's what I've been trying to say for a very long time. And I've gotten lambasted for that quite a bit. And I don't, it's all good. That's my job. My job is take some of the bruisings that need to be taken. My job next couple of weeks is going to be to chill out and rest and make sure that I take care of myself. But and here's the other thing. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people were like, Ben, you missed a lot of opportunities to slam Bakari last night. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm tired. And I hope that you could just understand my perspective. I'm like physically, emotionally tired. I'm not looking for sympathy at all. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. The perspective is this. I'm just tired of fighting with people who I probably agree with on 75 to 90% of other things, right? I'm tired of fighting with them and trying to show them the light. At some point, you have to realize they have their own light. They have their own way of seeing the world. And it's just time for I'm tired of fighting them. I'm tired of fighting them because I'll be honest with you, whatever Bakari and Nina Turner are working on, I'm going to jump on it and try to help out in Flint. So I was not interested in fighting with Bakari last night. I was interested in having the conversation that we had. And I'm sorry, guys. Sorry if you wanted me to come in like a raging champion and destroy Hillary Clinton through Bakari. I just didn't have the emotional energy to do so, because you have to understand this election. This election is an emotional one because it crosses on some intersections that are draining. The conversation about race is draining. The conversation about white people understanding the conversation about race is draining. The conversation with black people to try to help them understand that voting with the establishment is detrimental to their economic best interest is even more draining. And we over here at the Progressive Army, we've been living on that intersection nonstop for the last 8 months and been hitting it on 100 nonstop. So I was just honestly glad to have a good brother on the show last night. Disagree with them, but it wasn't as important that we disagreed as much as it was for us to have that conversation in general. All right, that is my postmortem of the debate or the discussion, because it wasn't a debate with Bakari. The last thing I want to say before we move on to the B side of the show.